There are a lot of issues that Charleston County School Board member Todd Garrett wants to tackle now that he's been re-elected. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with him one-on-one. Todd!
Yes.
Good morning.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yep.
Let me take you back to November 8th. You said this on Facebook to your particular followers.
Yep.
Quote, 171 of the 182 precincts reporting Todd Garrett at 67.28% of the vote in Charleston County. Thank you all very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to work to ensure that all of our children are college or career ready by graduation. We have a long way to go, but we have the team in place to get there. Thank you all. Talk to me about where you still are emotionally.
I'm excited about the opportunity we've got going ahead. We know that we have historically Charleston County has done a good job in some areas, but overall we're not getting kids to where they need to be. We're not getting white kids there. We're not getting Latinos there, and in particular, we're not getting African American kids there.
Okay.
Yesterday, we were reviewing numbers. 9% of our African American students by graduation are scoring a silver work keys. Work keys is the test where, say, Boeing is looking for employees. They want to. It's a standard sort of certification that says you come here with this level of math, reading, and problem-solving ability. Silver work keys qualifies you for about 2/3 of the jobs out there, so that's what our goal is.
Okay.
And only 9% of our African American students are there, which is a huge disservice. We're not to where we need to be on the white students or the Latino students either, but those are higher percentages, so it just shows what a hole we're in with trying to get all kids there.
And as a matter of fact, when I interviewed Tony Lewis last week, Thursday, he basically said, hey, listen, Friday actually, he said, it's not about Todd Garrett or Tony Lewis, but it's about scholars.
Yeah, it really is. I've got 4 kids in Charleston County public school system. One is en route because she's still in pre-kindergarten.
Oh, cool.
But my older 3 are already there, and another 12 nieces, nephews, cousins in Charleston County School District. So, I mean, it's important to me because my kids are there, but I know that each parent, their child's every bit as important to them as it is to me, and so if it's not good enough for my kids, I don't want it for anybody else's kids either. And we feel like we need to invest more in early education, continue along the success of what Meeting Street Schools has done with longer school days, more teachers in the classroom, having 2 teachers in each of the early grades, starting kids at 3-year-old kindergarten, and then longer school year as well.
Wow. Let me turn back to campaigning because you just mentioned you have so many, you have kids of your own.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what was your secret to balancing campaigning and being a father and working, your regular job as well?
It's tough, particularly for school board, because you've got 100 miles of distance in the county to be running.
Right.
A ton of different stakeholders, and it's a nonpartisan race.
Right.
So it's not gerrymandered like the partisan races are, because if you're a Republican, once you win the Republican side, you've essentially got that seat. If you're a Democrat, once you win the Democratic primary, you've essentially got that seat. But for a nonpartisan race, you've got to compete in every precinct. You've got to talk to a ton of people and make sure that what you're trying to do is a broad enough message to cover enough people, or at least 51%, and then to make sure you get out there and you reach out so that people know your name. It's tough, particularly for just an individual business person coming in to do it that's not a known entity ahead of time.
And speaking of talking to people, you'll be talking to a lot of new people on the school board.
Right.
Kevin Hollished,
Yep.
Priscilla Jeffrey, and of course, Reverend Chris Collins and Michael Miller coming
Right.
back. When you think of them, what sticks out to you?
Michael Miller, you've got a businessman who comes with a very practical background, conservative fiscally, and who wants to make sure that we're focused on getting kids where they need to be, wants to focus on the results for kids, and which, with the new administration we got in place, we're getting clear numbers. And yesterday we spent probably an hour and a half going over the numbers of where our kids are right now. Reverend Collins is very concerned about North Charleston schools in particular. He's got a good heart, and we don't agree on everything, but and he'll tell you the same. But but we agree to disagree, and got a good working relationship. Priscilla Jeffrey, I don't know as well. I know she's a background as an educator, which is a good insight to have within the board. And Kevin Hollenshed, I have met first time probably a year ago, but I know that he's focused on making sure we improve the results across the county, and look forward to working with him as well.
Speaking of which, describe to me the following one word: Lincoln Middle High.
Describe what about it?
Lincoln Middle and High, one word.
One word. Underachieving.
Stonewall Park Elementary.
Great potential. Or sorry, one word. Potential, I would say.
Oh, no worries. Patterson's Academy.
I'm going with two words. I would just say they've got a difficult. Their charter is their whole mission is difficult. Yeah.
Let's talk about Jane Edwards Elementary.
Okay.
How would you describe them right now?
It's right now with Jane Edwards. We're working with the community to try to decide where do we go from here. That this back in, I'm trying to correct me on the dates. It was April or May.
Right around there.
We were set to vote to close Jane Edwards. There were, I want to say, there's 67 kids there at the time.
Right.
It's incredibly tough or expensive per child to, and we can't offer a lot of opportunities that you can at bigger schools to run a 67 kid school. The community, both black and white down there, are united in mission to see that school succeed and to thrive. And so we essentially punted the ball down the field and said, all right, let's talk to the community about what are ways to make this a more sustainable program that number one is providing opportunity for those kids, that those kids, when they get done, that they're at the same level as they would be whether they're graduating from Stiles Point or one of the other schools with higher scores right now. But one, to make sure that they're achieving that level, and then two, that it's not a constantly shrinking program that has to be propped up.
The budget.
So we're budget over last year, obviously, we had a huge deficit. Really, it was $26 million was spent above our income year before last. Part of that was intentional because when we went in to approve a budget, we had planned for spending $7 million of our reserves. At that point, we were told by staff that we had $51 million in reserves, so it was a considerable cushion. And even with spending that $7 million, we were well above our board mandate, which is to keep 8.5 or 8.25% of our annual spending in reserves. So roughly $34 million we would keep in reserves at all times. So part of it was overspending, that they overspent what they were allowed. Staff spent $9 million above the budget without ever coming to the board, or without ever telling the board, without getting 2,600 changes in the budget occurred, none were approved. The budget would be approved at the end of June, and then July 1st they would begin changing that budget without board knowledge or approval. And so part of it was overspending, and then part of it was not talking to the county about. The county knew all along what we should have expected.
Right.
When we went in and approved a budget, we were basing that on expectations that we were going to have an additional almost $9 million in revenue that the county could have told us day one. And we rely on our staff to talk with the county to plan that. I mean, the county's our cash register.
Right.
That they're the ones who give us funds to go out and pay teachers. And so lack of communication and just a lack of controls within the district and a culture of overspending. So.
Sex education curriculum.
We've got, this is one of the most sensitive things that we've got in the district, that whether you're, I'm a Presbyterian and I've got Baptist family members, and within that, people in my church and then people within my family, I'll have people beat me up on both sides. One saying that you should only have abstinence, and the other saying that, come on, you got to get real and appreciate that kids are kids the same as they have always been, and we need to make sure that they are very knowledgeable about sex ed so that they can make good choices. We've got three options right now. You've got a You can either opt out of it altogether. There is an abstinence-only curriculum, and then there is a curriculum. Correct me on what did we? And I apologize for
No worries.
blanking on this. There's another curriculum that we just approved of the most recent edition of, which gives completely accurate, starting in 7th grade,
Right.
sex ed, so that kids can know everything and are well educated about what their actions can result in, so that they're knowledgeable and can make choices accordingly.
From July of last year to right now, as we sit here, Todd, what letter grade would you give for Dr. Jarita Postway as far as performance?
She's had a lot on her plate. I give her an A. She has had an incredibly. She walked into a firestorm. Mostly of the board's making. When board members, including myself, met with individual, and it wasn't just her. We met with potential candidates for superintendent before starting the process. There were multiple candidates who reached out to me, who reached out to other board members, and there were multiple meetings that were had with people who were considered. So it wasn't just her. But the result of that and the ill will that was created, and then in addition you had a large contingent of the stakeholders within the county wanting Dr. Lisa Herring to be the superintendent. So she was number 2 in the district, and she was not chosen by the board. So you had a contingent within the bureaucracy of the district, but also within the community who did not like the choice of Dr. Postway. So she came into a big issue, and then she also walked right into the budget mess. That she had been here probably 45 days and gets tapped on the shoulder and says, "Oh, by the way, we've nearly blown through all of our reserves.
Wow.
Where 3 months before we thought we had 51 million in reserves,
Right.
and we did, but we were blowing through them at a rapid pace. And then we were on target at that point to blow through every penny we had, from 51 million down to 0 by the end of this fiscal year, by June of this year. We made drastic cuts that she led. She got a new CFO, a new chief financial officer in place. We got a new academic officer in place. We've got new budget staff in place. She has cleaned house. We made tough choices last year, led by her cutting 300 positions within the district in order to stop the bleeding within the budget. And so she has not, this year is going to be focused more on education. We've got a dashboard in place, but she had first to fix the financial problem, and this year is focusing on getting the right people in place, and then ensuring that we're holding people accountable down to the classroom level for bringing kids up by more than a grade level every year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Todd Garrett, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you
Thank
coming.
you.